The drums kept playing long after the king died. I can still hear them sometimes, deep and steady like they're alive. That night, they echoed through the village, louder than I've ever heard. No one dared to look outside. No one dared to ask what was happening. The wicked king ruled over our land for 10 years. His name was King Olumide, but we never called him that. To us, he was only the wicked king. He took what he wanted: cattle, crops, women, children. He sent his warriors to burn villages if he thought they had disrespected him. People who spoke against him disappeared. I worked in his palace, sweeping the courtyard and cleaning the grand hall. I was nobody, just a servant, but I saw things I wish I hadn't. The king believed in curses and charms. He had a room in the palace, locked with a heavy wooden door. Only he and a man we called the Bone Reader were allowed inside. The Bone Reader was a skinny, dark-eyed man who wore necklaces made of bones and teeth. I heard whispers that he was a sorcerer, but no one ever said it out loud. One evening, after the king returned from one of his raids, he summoned servants to the hall. He was in a foul mood, pacing back and forth with his golden staff in hand. "Someone in this palace is betraying me," he said. His voice was low, but it carried across the room like thunder. "You think I do know? You think I can't feel it?" None of us moved, none of us breathed. "The Bone Reader will find you," he said, "and when he does, you will wish you were never born." That night, the Bone Reader walked the palace halls, carrying a small drum. He beat it softly as he moved from room to room, his head tilted as if he were listening to something only he could hear. When he reached my room, I froze. He stopped at the door and whispered something I couldn't understand. Then he moved on. By morning, one of the guards was gone. No one saw him leave and no one asked questions. But I saw the king smiling that day, like he had won something. That was the first time I thought about running away. A month later, the king announced a feast. He said it was to celebrate the spirit's blessings, but everyone knew it was just another excuse to show his power. The Bone Reader was there, sitting beside the king. The drum sat on his lap, silent. That night, I heard the drums again. This time, they were loud, almost deafening. I tried to cover my ears, but it didn't help. It felt like the sound was coming from inside me. When I couldn't take it anymore, I looked outside. That's when I saw them, the king's guards dragging a woman toward the locked room. She was screaming, begging for mercy, but they didn't stop. I closed the window and hid under my blanket, shaking. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, the woman was gone, but the drums, they kept playing.